Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi Thorin Lines. In today's video, we were doing a full review of season 1 of Loki. If you can, like and subscribe, uh, hit the thumb. Uh, I guess we'll start off with our for people that haven't watched it or haven't been watching our episode reviews. Let's give a summary about what the show kind of is about, I guess.
Yeah, so Loki Series 1. So it takes place after. Oh, I don't know. It's like after same time as Endgame. It's tricky because it's to do with time travel. But basically, in Endgame, Loki, when they go back in time, Loki then somehow comes hold of the Tesseract. He uses the Tesseract to then vanish somewhere, and that's all we see in the movie. But by doing this, Loki is now changed.
Got a show for himself.
Yeah, he's changed his destiny. His destiny was that he was meant to die at the hands of Thanos, but instead, this has happened and it's created what we later find out called a Nexus event. He's done something that was not meant to happen on his timeline. So we find out he holds the Tesseract, he disappears, he goes to Mongolia. Then this portal opens up, and these like police officer things come out of this portal. And he's like, oh, what are you guys doing here? They then take him hostage and then take him to this place. And where's the place he goes to? What do we find out about it?
The TVA, and they basically look after time and make sure that things happen correctly, and if not, you're a variant.
Yeah, so TVA, the Time Variant
Society.
TVA Authority. Yeah, Time Variant Authority. So they're like time police. He's done something he wasn't meant to on his predicted timeline. Brought him in. He goes through this whole scene of a few funny things. You learn about who the TVA are and that they try and prevent interdimensional, inter-timeline wars. So they find anyone that does something that they shouldn't have according to their set timeline. So if anyone has free will, basically they go and then they prune them, and that solves it to try and stop these inter wars. Okay,
so Loki, of the timekeepers.
Yeah, so Loki goes there. He learns about this. He says it's basically rubbish.
The lizard people.
We then are introduced to Owen Wilson's character Morbius, who decides he's like an agent that helps solve difficult cases with these variants, which are people that have created these Nexus events and done something they're not meant to. And he decides to get Loki on board to help him track down another variant. What do we learn about this other variant?
That she's been hunting down the TVA and been kind of looking for different areas in timeline, and then we find out that apocalypses work very well.
Yeah, so it's Mobius gets Loki to help hunt another Loki. We don't know who the Loki is for a little bit, then eventually gets revealed it's a female Loki. She then... Our Loki kind of backstabs the TVA and disappears with the female Loki. Then we find out that she's been on the run from the TVA. She wants to know who's behind there. She, as a little girl, was taken in by them, and they were basically going to kill her or prune her, and she didn't know why. So she's seeking revenge and wants to know who's behind the whole operation. And she's been doing so by hiding in apocalypses, because they found that these Nexus events where people do something that's not on their timeline goes unnoticed if it's around an apocalypse or some tragic event, because if everyone's going to die on a planet, it doesn't matter what you do, because you won't create any rafts or change the future, because you're going to die anyway. So she hides in these events. So that's what she's been doing from a little girl to now she's a mid-30-year-old woman, I would say. So her and Loki decide on a plan of how they're going to get back to the TVA, and they kind of have their kind of like a relationship. There's kind of a bit of love between the two.
And we find a massive curveball that she tells Loki.
Yes, what was that again?
that the TVA officers are also variants as well.
Oh yes, she discovered that they then we start to find out that there's more behind the TVA, that the officers are variants and they were once humans and then now they don't remember their past. They go on to try and undercover this. They end up finding this void at the end of time, and then through that they discover a castle, and then in the castle they then meet who was predicted all along was going to be behind the TVA, and it was Kang the Conqueror.
And we find out Elias was a dragon.
Yeah. And what do we find out about Kang? Like we're gonna this is the summary. We're gonna talk about the different parts, but summarizing the whole series, what's the thing we find out about Kang and why he has created the TVA?
Well, he was around in the 31st century, and he basically created it because other versions of himself actually started the multiverse wars, and he the first version of Kane found life and basically had the powers to create this endless power, so he could basically control time and
so he's supposedly the only person left at the end of time, and his role is to keep time moving forward, and he knows everything that happens in time, so his power is kind of knowledge. So it's believed that he's a human that found a way to time travel and became the last person remaining on Earth, and his sole purpose is to seek out variants, destroy them so that they then don't create these inter-multiversal wars. And he does it because he fears variants of himself coming to take over and do more nasty things than what he does. So we're led to believe he's a good guy, but we're not sure. We're left with Loki wanting to defend him. Sylvia, the female Loki, then kills him. And that's where the series kind of ends. We're left with seeing all these Nexus events happening. We assume he's dead, and Sylvia's there at the end of time, and Loki's now in some other version of the TVA. And that's the end of the season. So throughout we discover this whole idea about it introduces multiverses, it introduces time travel, it introduces people from well in the future having crazy technology that we don't, and we're still left with unsure if Loki's going to return to the usual timeline in which we find the Avengers movies finishing. So that's the summary. Let's give us your review and verdict on it.
I guess my review would be, out of the other two shows, I would probably say it's definitely the highest quality show. I would definitely watch it again between the other two, and yeah, I just enjoyed the roller coaster ride. It definitely has that answers and then questions, and then it keeps you on the edge of your seat. And then I would probably say this is probably the start of the next storytelling into the movies. So I think, and it's bold to have the villain, I would assume the villain of the next phases, to be in a TV show episode. So I think that takes a lot of guts for them to do that. So overall, I'm going to give it an excellent into a wow. There's, of course, nitpicks, but overall, I think it's a fantastic show.
So you're giving it an excellent to wow, so around that 4.5 star mark.
Yeah, so far it's the best Marvel show, no doubt.
Yep, I'm definitely agreeing with you there. I think even comparing it to a movie, hard to, because movies 2 hours long. This was 6 hours long. But I think it was more interesting than any of the movies, really.
Than Black Widow so far.
Oh, I think it's even more interesting than any of the Marvel movies. Like, is it better? Don't know. I'm not going to try and compare them. But I'm so interested about this idea of dimensions, time travel. Like, even if this wasn't a Marvel franchise and Loki, it didn't have Loki, this storyline about someone being able to travel through time and then time police trying to like keep people on a timeline is really interesting.
Mm.
Like I wouldn't even care like if this wasn't Marvel related. I want to know about this story. It just makes it even cooler that it involves Marvel characters. As you said, it's introduced a villain that who we assume is going to be the villain in Phase 4.
And 5, yeah.
And do we even know if he's a villain yet? Not sure. It's all like we're left on the edge of our seat.
And he seemed happy he was going to die. It's like, oh, you're going to see me again.
Yeah, it was creative. Throughout every episode, we wondered what was going to happen next. Nothing was predictable. The only thing we kind of knew for sure, but then still weren't certain about, was the idea that Kang the Conqueror was going to be the villain or the person behind the TVA through Easter eggs and spoilers and chat on forum. It kind of became apparent that that was the most logical option. But still, we both predicted something different prior to the last episode. So we still could have went either way.
I think we were hopeful though that it was going to be something else, but I think this was actually better.
Yeah, and I think it's cool it's getting a season 2.
Yeah.
None of the other shows so far have really deserved it. And I'm not going to compare it to the previous Marvel shows like your Luke Cages and your Jessica Jones. They're not in the same league. They're different. Like they somewhat link into the movies, but this is like purely movie gap fillers. They link in perfectly. Like there's no ifs or buts about it. Those were just bringing comic book characters to life in a series for people to watch. But this is different. This is like it adds to the universe in a large way. So I'm the same. I'm going excellent, and we've now decided that a 5 star is going to be an Owen Wilson wow. So I'm going to give it an excellent to a wow as well. So a 4.5 stars, only because I can't give anything 5 stars. No, yeah. It's very hard to give something 5 stars. So this is about as close as you're going to get.
And I do have to say, the ending need to happen that way, so we did get more versions of himself. I was thinking, did Sylvia needed to do it, but made sense for a character. But it's like, if he's telling the truth, it's like you've doomed us all.
It's set up really well, and we're again left on the edge of our seat. I think WandaVision did that too. I think WandaVision left us on the edge of our seat with the end scene where she was in the cottage and you want to know more. Falcon the Winter Soldier, not really.
Setting up for his movie.
It's set up for other stuff, but we're not left like, oh, what could this mean for the universe? It's like, well, we just know that he got a new fancy suit and he now has Captain America's shield. But this has really set us up for something different. Like, I'm very excited about it. Okay, given the verdict, let's open it up. Let's go some questions, some nitpicks, some discussion.
So I guess the first thing to talk about, what is Kane's obsession with Loki? He never said, oh yeah, with all the Lokis, this is why I love, like, being with you or seeking you out. It's like, oh yeah, you two can just take over my position. He never said, this is why I have classic Loki, Crocodile Loki, the Black African Loki, and President Loki, and all the other Lokis.
Well, I spoke to a few people about this, and everyone said something different. But I think that it was... So, my first theory was that behind the TVA was going to be a Loki, and he wanted other Loki variants destroyed so that they couldn't take his throne. Which we then discovered, no, it's Kang. But Kang's basically doing the same thing. He just wants to prevent someone from taking his throne. But I'm starting to think that maybe... Well, one person said to me that everyone goes there, the Lokis just happen to survive. They're like the cockroaches that survive a nuclear explosion. They're the worst of the worst and they survive. But I don't believe that, because I would have thought other people, like... Wouldn't variants of the Hulk or something survive? Or like someone would have. I think that he's personally sought out Lokis, and it's all a test to see which Lokis are willing to take on Goliath, or smart enough to take on Goliath, to then pass the test with the clock of saying, oh, I'll give you everything you want, all the riches and powers and things that Lokis want. To pass that and then make it to the final stage of meeting him.
Yeah.
I think it was all a test, and I think he chose Loki's because his job seems lonely. It seems that the only thing you get from it is power, but you don't have anyone to share it with.
Yeah.
But I think he knows that Loki's would like that, and they're the only people that are self-absorbed enough to be willing to take on the throne. So that's my theory. It's not an obsession with Loki. He was seeking out Loki's to take over because he felt that Loki's were the best suited people for the job. But then you question, why did they need to have a Nexus event for him to take them? Couldn't he just go and just grab every single Loki ever and prune them? I don't know. There's, I'm sure we'll get an answer. If we don't, it'll be disappointing. What's your theory behind it? Why do you think he seeked out Loki's?
Out of all the people in time, I guess it's probably the main person that would want to do it. Like, I don't really see anyone else kind of doing it. I guess out of everyone in time or history, I guess Loki is probably the best one suited to the job.
I just want to wait. I don't know if that's going to be on the... You can hear your mum talking. I'd rather not ruin the whole video. Let me just wait. Like, I think when we're talking, you won't hear it because we're loud. But I'd rather be certain. Okay, I think we can go again. Okay, what's your next question of nitpick or discussion point?
Did you think all the episodes... Did you feel like there was any fillers, or they were all structured episodes, no, like, wasted episodes? Would you like there to be maybe 2 more episodes, or you felt like 6 was enough?
I think 2 more would have gave us too many answers, and we wouldn't be so intrigued about the next series. Fillers, I don't know about fillers. There's the one episode where they go to like Leviticus or
episode 3.
Yeah, they go to that planet. I don't know if it's a filler as such. It's just not as an eventful, and it's kind of the only thing we achieve from it is them running away, looking like they're going to die, left on a cliffhanger, but knowing that they're going to be rescued. Like, it was just, we knew they'd eventually be rescued. But I guess it shows how Nexus events work, that them two having a moment and expressing interest in each other was a Nexus event because they're the same person. So that kind of showed the power of a Nexus event, and maybe that sets it up for future episodes that maybe they require, like, that will somehow come important. So yeah, I don't know if it was a filler. It just was. Unfortunately, one episode's got to be the worst, and that to me was the worst.
Were you disappointed that there wasn't any cameos or anything like that? Or the other versions of Loki kind of make more sense, I guess?
Yeah, they're cool. I feel like maybe we could have got some kind of cameo. Like, maybe it was like a variant of Tony Stark or something, or like or maybe even they could have thrown in, like, I don't know, like one of the Spider-Man variants, like maybe like Tobey Maguire or something. But it definitely has opened up the option for... It just kind of explains everything. Because, you know, in like the Marvel comics, you always go, oh, there's Hulk, and then there's She-Hulk, and then there's all these variants of different people, and we go, well, how's that work? But this whole idea of the multiverse just explains everything. It's just they're on a different timeline. Loki can be an alligator. Like, it's like everything is a possibility. Okay. What else do you want to talk about from this series?
Do you feel like if someone hasn't got into the MCU with the TV shows, this is a good starting off point? Like, out of all the MCU shows, because this, you know, people have busy schedules, would you recommend Loki compared to the other 2?
I would. If you hadn't got into the MCU universe yet, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. But
the TV shows.
But if you hadn't watched any of the shows yet, I think it's the one to watch. I think WandaVision at this point could probably be skipped because we don't know what it's going to mean yet. And what do we learn from Falcon the Winter Soldier? Falcon gets a new
He's getting
suit.
his own movie.
Like, for some people, most people probably couldn't care less. Like, if you weren't a big Marvel fan, you'd be like, cool, you got a new suit.
He's
like,
getting his movie.
Yeah, like, it just wouldn't matter to you, really. You just, there'd be some people that probably won't even notice. They're like, oh, he changed colours. Like, that's cool. So, but this is pretty important. I did have a question for you. What was it? Thinking about the show, what we thought of it so far. Do you think we missed out by not getting the Owen Wilson wow and the jet ski? Do you think that was a disappointment for the series?
I was thinking a perfect moment would have been when the judge was going on about loyalty and stuff like that, and Morbius could have been like, oh wow, that's not a cool thing, but my prediction is we'll get the wow when the two characters will see each other. It's like, wow, there you are.
Yeah, that'd be funny actually, where they're like kind of like that. Have you ever seen that meme of like the Spider-Mans where they're all like pointing at each other?
Yes.
It'd be like that, but with like Mobius's.
Yeah, Mobius's. Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon it has to be tied in with the jet ski. Like the wow has to come with the jet ski.
Yeah.
And given that if this was only one season, we would have got it. I really think we would have, but because there's two, it makes sense. It makes sense that they're saving it. I think it could have been cool even if, you know how the guard took some of the other Minutemen to see the judge in a different variation of herself when she was a teacher.
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been cooler if they went to see Morbius instead and he was like a jet ski instructor or something.
Yeah.
Like that would have been cooler, but then I think they're saving it. You can't plant this seed of the jet ski. Like, I know it's them showing that he has some kind of memory from his past, and that's why it's there, because he doesn't understand why he likes jet skis, but why pick jet skis? It could have been anything. He could have been a sports fan, he could have really liked cars. Like, it seems like a random thing to pick. There's got to be something important about it.
So for people that prefer certain things, do you think this does a better storytelling or action? What do you feel like this show does what people would get something out of it?
I think, yeah, I think it's the story. The characters are good, but for me, this whole multiverse thing is way cooler than Thanos. To me, it seems like, well, we invested so much time in the previous phase of Marvel movies building up to being Thanos, and
so Kane's more interesting to you than Thanos, it sounds like.
For sure, I think he is definitely. And I guess they've saved it for a reason, but I feel like it's not that it's too late, it's just when you made 20 movies to build up to Endgame, you feel like everything else after this is just a bonus. Like, maybe they re-bring themselves back and this becomes, and they make another 20 movies before we get a result from Kang or something. But Thanos is still the main pivotal villain inside the Marvel Universe movie so far, the cinematic universe. So if they can push this and make it more important, then I think it's a better story. Like, he makes Thanos look weak in comparison. Like, I know he's just a man, but he knew what Thanos was doing and didn't fear him. He's like, oh, the Avengers will beat him. No one else knew that, but Kang knew that. He knows everything. He's the last person left. He's therefore the most powerful person in the universe if he's the last person that remains at the end of time.
Do you buy that he knows everything, or you want to learn more about his character? Like, you're more invested in learning about his backstory? They've done it in a clever way.
Oh, I definitely want to learn more. It's just, I like the fact that he has that human element, but his power is knowledge.
And time.
Yeah. Well, he has control over time because of his knowledge of creating time machines and whatnot. So Thanos to me never made sense, like why he was so powerful. He came from a planet of other people just like him. So in that case, why was he the one that became so powerful? That always confused me. But this guy just just controls time. He can create gadgets and go between time.
Mm.
If anyone ever came after him, unless they possessed a tempad and the ability to travel through time, he could just disappear and never be seen again. Like, how do you fight someone that can go back and kill you before you're born?
Mm.
Like, if his enemy is Thanos, he can just go back in time and kill Thanos' parents, and Thanos never was born. Like, he possesses so much power, it's not funny. He could make Tony Stark... Tony Stark was an orphan, but he could have made Tony Stark never born. Like, he has so much power because of the ability to time travel. So he could also go between times and collect all the variants of himself and create an army of himself. He could go and find 30 Hulks and convince the Hulks that he needed them on his side and create an army of Hulks. He has infinite powers, really. Where Thanos, to me, seems insignificant in power compared to this guy.
Did you prefer Sylvia's journey throughout the show, or Loki or Morbius? Which character did you...
Probably Tom Hiddleston Loki. Sylvia's character... I don't know, I don't think her journey changed. She was always angry at the TVA and never really changed. Loki went from pleading for his life to scheming to trying to do the right thing to taking down the man to now being on the side of the people he was trying to take down. Like, he's really moved around, where Sylvia's just been consistent, hates the TVA and reluctant to even have Loki help her.
I guess the biggest question, the writers kind of had to make Sylvia do that. Would you prefer it to happen, and would you liked it if Loki and Sylvia took over, but Kane like did a backstab or something else happened, or did you like that Sylvia fulfilled her story? But like I said,
I think it needed to happen because it sets it up. It's kind of like you can rewatch the Avenger movies and be like, oh, why didn't Star-Lord just stab Thanos? Like, we could have ended it earlier, but he had to not do it and give in so that then the movies would continue on. So there's just another moment like that. Because if we nitpicked every movie like that, nothing would really exist. You'd be like, well, why doesn't Batman just kill the Joker? Why does he keep putting him in prison, letting him escape? And why do villains always, when they capture James Bond, feel the need to torture him, and they leave the room, and then he defeats the guards and sneaks out when they could just shoot him, and that would be the end of James Bond? Like, it's just one of those things that has to exist in order to progress a storyline. So I think, I'm not against it. I think it builds off, and I just don't think I could watch any of the movies with Thanos anymore and take him serious.
Okay.
One, we know his fate. We know he ends, but he just seems insignificantly powerful now. Like, the fact that we don't even know how many multiverses there are. I think they imply that there's infinite.
Yeah.
So there could be an infinite amount of Thanoses, and they themselves are not powerful enough to take down one variant of Kang. So how do the Avengers take down him? Or is he the one they're taking down? Like, is he maybe not a villain?
We'll see. I don't know about yourself, but when I was watching Black Widow, kind of comparing to Kane and Thanos, I couldn't take him seriously. What about yourself?
No, I'm not sure. Yes and no. I don't know if I wouldn't take him serious. Didn't really give it much thought, to be honest.
He's just a villain that's kind of generic and...
Yeah, he's still interesting. I wanted to know more about the story behind the villain, but the villain itself wasn't scary. Yeah.
So I guess our main predictions for season 2, I would probably say season 2 will be about Loki either season 2 is going to be about two things: either Loki trying to get back to his TVA and with Morbius and stuff like that, or kind of going back to or reconnecting with the group where he's with now, with just the one statue of Kang the Conqueror at the end. So he's either going to try and work out where his timeline is, or we'll see.
Yeah, I don't really know where season 2 is going to go from. I kind of thought that they left it in a place where the movies would take over, but that's not the case. We saw that it said season 2 was returning, so I don't know. I feel like they're obviously not going to take down Kang or whoever. Or I still don't really know who is the good and bad guy in this in the series, because that wouldn't make sense for the movies. So I don't know. I really don't know what season 2 could be about. I'm predicting the Morbius jet ski and Loki and Sylvia to end up together, and that's about it. That's as far as my predictions can go. As to what the series is going to be about, I'm not sure.
So you enjoyed the concept of Loki a lot more, and you kind of felt that his show was good enough. Do you feel like it was good enough for season 2?
Oh, definitely. It needs a season 2. It deserved it. The only series that was set up to have a season 2, I guess. WandaVision, maybe. WandaVision was left in a point where we could have a second season, but I think that's moving on to the movies. So, yeah, I think so. It's very exciting that a show can be as good, if not better, than the movies.
And I guess out of all the Loki variants, which one would you like to have more backstory of, or its own show, or short?
Maybe Sylvia. I wouldn't maybe finding out a bit more about her journey from we don't like how she escaped to like being on the run for so long. That would have been kind of cool. Maybe the young Loki, the older Loki, not so much.
Classic Loki.
Yeah, the alligator Loki. Well, what could we make about that? Like, I don't know if you could make a series about that. So, yeah, we'll go the young Loki maybe, or Sylvia.
Did you find any of the characters or any moments like with how they it's a show basically about twists and answers, so did you see any of the twists or happening, or did the writers do their job? And
no, I think it was all pretty much a twist. The only things that became predictable was I felt they were going to be saved by the TVA when they were stuck on the planet, and I felt that Morbius was going to see the truth and try and take down the TVA. They were the only two twists and turns that became apparent, but the rest not so much. Yeah, you predicted the Kang idea, but we still don't really know enough about it to understand whether we're right or wrong. But we know that he is who's behind it, but whether his intentions are good, bad, or unknown yet, still undecided.
Because there's so many different versions of yourself, so how do you defeat someone that's from the 31st century?
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it progresses.
So does it make you? Are you more looking forward to seeing Ant-Man 3 to see Kang the Conqueror, or the main character being Paul Rudd as Ant-Man?
Not really sure. I wasn't aware until you mentioned that he was going to be in it. I guess where in the timeline where does the
when does the movie come
No, not that one. The other movie, the one that's
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, when does that come out?
Next year.
Do you think that will involve anything to do with? Because isn't it like called Doctor Strange in the Multiverse or something like that?
Yeah, it could. Anything's possible.
Yeah, do you think that might somehow tie in as well?
I think so.
Yeah, so maybe I'll wait to see how that goes first, because we might get a lot of questions answered from there before we know what. Because Ant-Man's a long way away.
Mm.
So I'm looking forward to that movie.
Mm.
And I feel like it has to have something to do with it, and maybe tie in WandaVision.
Mm. Because WandaVision or Scarlet Witch is in that movie.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see.
Did you like or found it bold that they actually added a big villain in the last episode of a TV show? Because normally that does not happen.
It's very different for Marvel. Obviously, in other shows that don't link in with movies, that would be not an uncommon thing to leave season 1 on a cliffhanger. But for this to introduce who possibly is the biggest villain in the Marvel universe, it's so far in the movies and shows, to introduce it in the end of a series is different.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did like it. You've also mentioned, is there like Doctor Doom or something's another character of some sort that hasn't been introduced? Like whether he will become a villain in the future in the Marvel universe?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I always like seeing they put the rankings online, or of like, according to like comic book people, who like the top 100 villains are in, and it's like they're never people I've heard of. Like Thanos is like would barely make the 100, and Kang was like 50th or something. You're like, well, who's more evil than these people? Like, who's the number one villain? So yeah, intrigued to see and why they chose him as a villain. They obviously feel that it's an interesting story that people want to know about, and time travel kind of is.
Yeah, time's very interesting. Well, thank you for helping, Luke. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and very much looking forward to season 2. Can't wait for it. We'll let you know the release date once it becomes available. Thank you for watching. Let the force be with you. Bye bye.